Hi, welcome to the National Civic Design Center. Like she said, my name is Ron Yearwood. I'm the Assistant Design Director here. I've been here for about 4 years now, and my undergraduate work, I studied at UT Architecture, or UT College of Architecture in Knoxville, and grad school in Switzerland at the UTH for urban design. And I'm from Nashville. How many of you in here are from Nashville? Okay. How many of you here, this is your first time in this space? Wow. Well, welcome. As she said, so this is the National Civic Design Center. We're a nonprofit organization. Our mission is basically to elevate the quality of the built environment for Nashville. We do a lot of conceptual design thinking and basically visioning the future for Nashville. So the topic was minimal, and I thank you guys so much for reaching out to us and asking me to speak on this topic. At first I was kind of like, I think maybe you should pick somebody else. Not really sure how this really fits into the topic, but really when we started thinking about it, we had a talk over some beers, and it made sense. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we do, and so I'll just get started. So minimal. What is minimal? I think at first you kind of go to minimalism and simple forms, but I kind of want to come from an urban design perspective. And so what are the basic elements needed to create great places? Quality over quantity, function over decoration and excess. So when we talk about minimal, what we do here, we've started to do more of, and it's really exciting and I'm really passionate about it, are these minimal interventions with maximum impact. And this involves temporary installations and also permanent. And a lot of it is conceptual, and a lot of it is also real on the ground, making it happen. So let me just walk you through it. And at first I wasn't really sure how to frame this because there's so much to talk about, but I want to try to fit it in. And so we're doing a publication right now as part of the Civic Design Center called Shaping the Healthy Community, the Nashville Plan. And it's kind of a segue from the Plan of Nashville that was produced in 2004. And this looks at the county, the built environment, and how it affects our health. And this is really becoming a major topic around the country, and because we have so many epidemics, especially with obesity and inactivity. So I decided to frame this using our factor groups that we identified in that book: food resources, parks and open space, neighborhood design and development, housing and buildings, walkability and transportation. All of these factors affect our health. And so I'm going to start with housing. Like I said, I went to UT Architecture. I moved back to Nashville after graduating. I had a job right out of college. This was pre-recession. And I moved to Lebanon with my family, and that lasted about 2 months. And I really couldn't stand driving 30 miles or more to work every day. It was killing my soul. And so me and 2 of my friends also worked at the same company downtown at Gresham Smith and Partners, and we decided to look for urban living. And what is urban living? This is kind of like a new hot topic, but at the time, 2007, there wasn't so many options in downtown. I was lucky and found a little place here on the corner. So I moved downtown in October of 2007, and it was a completely new lifestyle change. It was really the definition of minimal living. You go from a big house to 700 square feet, and how do you fit everything in there? How do you function? And it's actually really easy. And walking to work, I can't tell you enough. How many of you walked here today? Okay, there's a few. You're probably more awake than everybody else. So this is becoming a new trend, is this urban living, micro-unit housing. This is a project with the University of Tennessee in partnership with the Civic Design Center. T.K. Davis, the previous design director here, has a studio every summer, and actually every semester. He focuses his projects in Nashville. And last summer they focused on micro-unit housing for downtown Nashville. They selected 5 sites around downtown and looked at various options of configurations, housing for students, for young professionals, single professionals, from around 250 square feet up to 500 square feet. That was the maximum they designed. So, what is micro-unit housing? This is kind of an example with a few pointers, but basically it's a space that can adapt, it can transform, it's very versatile, and it has everything you need, but contained in pretty much one space. So that's kind of one diagram. This is a guy, I was going to show a video of this, but my presentation would be way too long. So this guy in Barcelona, this is 258 square feet. He has everything hidden in this wall. His kitchen, his dining room, everything slides in and out. It's a very active space. And he can fit like 40 people in there. And there's a balcony, the bed slides underneath the balcony. This table kind of comes down, you suddenly have a couch. So how do you kind of transform the elements that you have in one space? This is one of the examples from the UT project. Over the land, the transportation hub, what was supposed to be a transportation hub in the gulch behind Cummins Station, using these spaces as infill development for micro-unit housing. And this is kind of an axon of what that could look like and how those spaces could be shaped. And like I said, it transforms throughout the day. What does it look like at night and when you wake up? What does it look like when you're trying to eat? What does it look like when you're taking it easy, watching TV? So it's about designing a space that fits what you're doing at a particular time. This is another example, just real quick. Is everybody familiar with the garage on Dedrick Street near Public Square? It kind of has this spiral ramp in the middle. Well, there's space on top to go up about 3 more floors and space on the sides to add on to the street. So this project was looking at how do you infill on top of a garage and creating new residential. So it's kind of being creative about where you place these two instead of just taking away new green space. Types of construction, container housing, container buildings are becoming really popular. I think everybody in here is probably familiar with that. I love this example. When I was in Switzerland, the Freitag Tower. Is everybody familiar with Freitag? They make messenger bags, things out of shipping canvases, trucking canvases. So this tower, it's really cool. It's actually overlooking the highway, and you can kind of look at the trucks going by while you're picking out your bag. Anyway. Again, using these simple materials as building blocks. And this is a really great restaurant. It also, turn it upside down. You have an office. Down the street. That might be better. Student housing. There's so many great ways to implement these simple materials and to incorporate it in the city and how a city can function. How do you incorporate students into your city? How do you incorporate that young professional? How do you incorporate somebody who's downsizing? Food. So having a minimal lifestyle downtown, urban living, you kind of get rid of your yard, right? Which is a good thing. I don't want to mow my yard. But I did miss gardening. And luckily, here in Nashville, we have community gardens, and they're growing. This is called the Farm in the City. One thing I forgot to mention, we have a group of young professionals here at the Civic Design Center called the Young Urbanists. And basically it's kind of an advocacy group, and we do tours of buildings. We got to kind of see the behind the scenes stuff. We do urban gardening. We have beer social hours, and this is our Young Urbanist plot, and this is downtown, like right beside the interstate. It's owned by and run by MDHA. This plot is 4 feet by 16 feet, and it costs $15 a year. It includes water, soil, access. I mean, it's basically free, and we have this here in Nashville. I can plant so many things and eat fresh food from such a small space. This is crucial to having a minimal lifestyle in a downtown setting. Another example, I actually have 2 plots. This was my personal one. But you can see what's also great about this kind of small space. In a typical garden, you have rows and you have to plant things so far apart. Well, you can do like square foot gardening, and you can plant so much closer together and still gain quite a bit of food. Part of this is actually in Switzerland, off of the Greenway. They have so many, they're called family gardens, and they have one spot allocated per family, per Swiss citizen family. Not everybody probably uses that, but they have that allocated as part of their city plan to have that space incorporated in the middle of the city on different spots. They probably have 20 different locations where these little urban gardens kind of pop up, and they're accessed by greenways, accessed by road, accessed by train, boat. It is Switzerland, by the way. And this is in Atlanta at Piedmont Park. This is a new installation. It's an education garden. I think this is really becoming crucial, especially for kind of the minimal lifestyle, urban living. A lot of people didn't grow up on a farm. A lot of people don't know how to grow, or where does a carrot come from? You'd be surprised that some kids these days didn't know they grew out of the ground. I'm not kidding. So education gardens, farmers markets, access to farmers market. We have that infrastructure in place to get fresh food. I can't always grow everything in my garden, or enough anyway. And having that nearby where I can either take a B-cycle or walk down to it is really great. And they also have a community kitchen that teaches you how to cook certain things. Like, I didn't know how to do anything with Swiss chard. And they'll have these demonstration classes. And it's really crucial for our younger generations to learn these things, because less and less people are growing up on farms and more are growing in cities. So still having that access and that knowledge about where our food comes from. I put this in there because so the topic is minimal. I recently went to visit the Netherlands and Switzerland again. And this was like the best coffee shop I've ever been to. It's so simple. You can create a work of art with foam. I mean, Pac-Man in my coffee mug. It doesn't get any better than that. And so I think this is food access and food resources, but it doesn't just have to be about your needs, but it can also be about creativity. It could be about luxuriousness, and how do you incorporate that as well into your functions. So open space, that's another category. This is probably my favorite category. We, in 2010, when I first started working here, I got to work on a project called Moving Tennessee Forward. And it was all about transportation. And we kind of snuck in a chapter about open space and how to reclaim some of that pavement, that extra pavement that is not even for cars. It's just one of those like weird triangles or this kind of leftover dead-end space. And that kind of led into Parking Day. Is anybody here familiar with Parking Day? Yes, a few? Okay. So what's great about Parking Day that I think can really start a lot of conversation and implementation is that it's a small-scale intervention. And what you're seeing here is our first Parking Day installation. This is Hawkins & Partners and ESA's installation on Broadway. We have no trees anymore on Broadway. In fact, people are trying to get rid of the trees here on 2nd. It's crazy. So this is why the conversation has to keep going, to make sure we're moving forward and not backwards. This is probably my favorite event of the year. We last year had about 30 spaces. This is kind of like the global graphic they use with the car upside down. The premise is you take a metered parking spot and you turn it into a park for a day. And it's always the third Friday in September. This year it's on the 19th. We organize that here at the Civic Design Center through our Young Urbanist group, and it's been growing every year. And I'm really excited about this year. It also happens to be on Talk Like a Pirate Day, so there might be something with a pirate theme, I'm not sure. These were our spaces last year. We had 30 parks on Broadway, 2nd Avenue, 5th Avenue, and 10th Avenue South in front of Cummins Station. I'm going to show a quick video clip of last year. Our intern kind of put together some videos from the day. It's only 2 minutes, so bear with me. I hope this works. Even the mayor came out. This was our spot. We had a kind of a active parking spot. By the way, she had chickens in there. Urban farm back there. Urban agriculture. But one of the problems we're trying to address here too is that sidewalks on Broadway are so small, right? So using these small interventions, we can really start to activate that space in a new way and create spaces for people to sit. Imagine that. Play games. And one of my favorite comments every year is like, is this going to be here forever? And kind of like, no, it's just today. But that's also what's great about it. It happens in a day, and you can really experiment with anything, as long as you don't put a car in there. So, these minimal interventions. This is a park in Zurich. We actually have one here in Sobro too. These giant chess sets, and Gary, our design director, he just sent me a photograph of these kids playing a giant chess set in Detroit. They had a big event this week, and just simple things like that. These outdoor games, these kind of lawn games. It's just about getting people active and getting them to do something in that space, using it in a different way. When we were this is in Strasbourg, and this, it's just a piano for you to play in the train station. It's like, okay. And we came back and somebody was playing it, and it was great. It was like this new acoustic ambiance to the space that wasn't there before. And, putting that infrastructure in place, but it's small scale, so it's pretty easy to do. Or cut a boat in half, and now you have a bench. Being creative about the types of materials you're using, the types of interventions you're placing in. It can also be funny, and small. That's the size of 4 cobblestones. This is in the red light district of Amsterdam. I mean, most people would probably walk right past it. I almost did, and I was like, wow, okay, I have to take a picture of that. So what are these minimal interventions? And what I want to get across too is that it doesn't always have to be tiny. It can also be pretty large or medium or extra large. It's the idea, and a simple idea kind of goes a long way. This kind of goes back to more the minimalism, just extruding forms, these simple planes. When we walked past this space, there was a group of kids and their dads playing soccer or football in here, and just that raised space right there was keeping that ball in play. They could kick it as hard as they wanted to, and it just kind of bounced right back 90% of the time it stayed in. But just making that simple move changes that space entirely and allows a new type of activity to take place. So like I said, what we do here, a lot of times, we come up with these really big ideas or small ideas that can have a big impact, and we do these renderings that show a before and after. This is part of that Reclaiming Public Space publication. This traffic triangle, we were talking about the streetcar at the time, preamp. How do you fit in these basic elements? Transportation, walkability, public space, a place for people to sit. I don't know if you noticed, but there is a bus stop in the middle of the triangle here. There's no crosswalk to get to this triangle. There's no sidewalk there, but people use this space. People get dropped off here. It's dangerous. So how do you create safe places for pedestrians and cars and trains? So walkability. It doesn't have to be a grand intersection. It doesn't have to be a grand sidewalk. Using paint and organizing the street. That's the key, is organization. Bicyclists know where they're going. Motor vehicles know where they're going. Motor scooters know where they're going. Sometimes we have the minimum instead of minimal. And a lot of times that's not good enough. And sometimes we don't even have the minimum. This is on Division Street, just past the Gulch. This is in our downtown, basically. So how do we address these? Sometimes a small temporary installation isn't big enough to handle this problem. Or this problem, where she would have to walk a half mile in either direction to get to the nearest intersection. But some temporary solutions could include making your own crosswalk. This was actually at Parking Day this year, and one of the groups made some chalk paint, and so it's temporary. Didn't really ask permission, but tactical urbanism, but they made a crosswalk, and people used it, and cars slowed down. How do you create these temporary installations that have a big impact? In this case, they need something more than temporary. So this is downtown. We're right here. This is a convention center. What's interesting, so this is a walking radius map. Did you know that it is closer to walk from the convention center to the Adventure Science Center than it is to walk from the convention center to the farmer's market? Would you ever do that? No, you wouldn't, because it looks like this. There's nothing to draw you to that direction. So when I'm saying that we're thinking about the future, you start thinking 25 years in advance, and how are these spaces going to transform? Sobro is exploding. One day it'll probably look like this. This is just a rendering that we did of that same intersection. This is a street that they're proposing to continue over, Division, and I think it turns into Ash. And then, creating this Avenue of the Sciences, or, these elements that can be put in place to create great spaces. This is Broadway again, and we did another rendition showing trees, because we love street trees and we need more of them and more shade. And just these simple renderings, like it only takes a day to produce this, but it drives a conversation that can last for years, and potentially implementation. And what's also nice is creating a city for kids, you know, that simple installation of a slide downstairs, like, that doesn't cost much money, but it adds that fun factor that makes this a great place, especially for kids. And if you make it a great place for kids, it's great for everybody. And probably for teenagers too. So this is a crosswalk. It was a game, basically, to take pictures of people across the crosswalk from you and submit it to this like website. And I think you could win something for the silliest thing. But, you know, it's just these little things that are almost invisible to the physical infrastructure, but lighting, that's another key issue, is another small intervention that you can make kind of a scary tunnel, what would be a scary tunnel. This changes colors constantly, so it's like, you know, it's drawing you in to see what the other side is like. And we have a lot of places that could use some, you know, artistic lighting. This was one of the earlier projects we worked on. In terms of walkability, this is a T-dot bridge over I-40 that connects public housing to Sobro. It's pretty dilapidated, it's pretty scary to walk across. It hasn't been renovated in a long time, it hasn't been painted in a long time, it's just been neglected. And with simple paint, some material changes, some lighting, all of a sudden you have a gateway into Nashville. I mean, this is the first thing you get to after the split. And you see that, like, welcome to Nashville. I want this. And it doesn't take that much. What's exciting is that they found money, MDHA found money to start doing some things like this. They may not get to the lighting piece due to, if they go over a certain amount, they have to make it ADA compliant. It was built before this compliance. Anyway, T-dot. Transportation. This is not minimal at all, and we drive a lot. In fact, there was a study done in 2010 where they identified Nashville-Davidson County Metro as the #1 city that spends the most time in cars. That doesn't mean we spend the most time in congestion, so our congestion isn't quite as bad as other cities, but we're driving further and spending more time in cars than any other place. And that's scary, and we're growing, and it's gonna get worse. So how do we have minimal impacts on the environment? You know, when you think of air pollution, you know, you might automatically go to these industrial sources and coal plants. Well, per year, this is kind of a proportion of, and Janie did this graphic. Hey, Janie. She's up there. Anyway, you know, cars produce way more pollution than the industrial sources. This is still really bad. Don't get me wrong. This is terrible. We can do a lot here, but we can do a huge effort here to reduce that. I want you to look at this for a little bit. This is average miles per person in Davidson County. This is how many you drive a day, 34.7. That's our average. That's enough to go around the world 26 times every day. Just some fun facts. The promising thing is that 60% of our daily trips are less than 5 miles. That's very bikeable distance. I think 30 or 40% of that is under 2 miles. You can walk and bike that for sure. But you know, we have to create that infrastructure that makes it welcoming and inviting. Public transportation is another piece of that, and you know, just taking the bus once in a while. We kind of did this fun thing, like, okay, let's just say we're just going to drive. Let's just plant a bunch of trees, right? Like, you can plant trees to offset the carbon. It's fine. Well, if you do the math, which we did, that was kind of fun. You would need 2.6 million acres to a forest, just forest, to kind of offset that. Well, how many is that? That's like almost 8 more Davidson counties full of forest, just to offset Davidson County's driving. We don't have this, so we only have this. So we need to go from 34.7 miles to 2.1 miles to kind of be carbon neutral. That's probably not going to happen. We get that, but it can be a goal. and just to kind of reduce our impact. These, I don't recommend getting on Ellington Parkway with your bicycle. So making these small interventions and installations, it's a good idea, but it wasn't well thought out. And part of that process, you really have to start thinking about it. There are 4 types of cyclists. This is the piece we really need to be reaching, is the 60% who would totally bike, but we just don't have the infrastructure for it that makes them feel safe. Gateway Bridge is another rendering where we can start to incorporate a road diet. That gateway is the same width as a Golden Gate Bridge, and yet a fraction of the traffic. Another easy installation is protected bike lanes. We have a bike lane on Charlotte, but what would it look like if you put these plastic bollards up? How much more safe would you feel if you had bollards, some sort of protection from those vehicles? Other basic infrastructure for cycling that we really don't have here. An air pump, you get a flat tire once in a while, it happens. Walking upstairs on these ramps, access to drinking water, which has been implemented recently, a great deal, which is great, but there's still a lot of work to be done. A downtown bike station in this kind of odd triangle space that is owned by the city and could be run by a public-private partnership. Using materials to start organizing the streets. And using technology and this small infrastructure and putting bicyclists and pedestrians first. So this is kind of gives priority to the bicyclist. When you touch it, it says, okay, you're here, and it changes the light. Less is more. Less cars, more bicyclists. This is a bike street. The sign basically says, cars be our guest. So it's a very slow street, but this grandmother feels safe. This child feels safe. Almost done. So the last factor, neighborhood design and development. I think this really embodies infill and kind of smart growth. This is an old train bridge. It's still active. Part of it was not active. This piece is a greenway. And then they just kind of filled in underneath these arches with a market and restaurants, a grocery store, outdoor eating, the recycling bin over here. This is part of that space. And what's exciting is that they also found money to do this. Maybe not exactly this, but this is what we had kind of envisioned. There's a new tenant here, and they kind of partnered with MDHA to basically reclaim that pavement into a park and make this gateway into Nashville a little bit more inviting. It was included in the Sober Master Plan, and that's where that owner found it. So you create an idea, 4 years later, it becomes something. You just have to put it out there, and a lot of times it's just about creating the idea and keep talking about it, like this, the pedestrian bridge to the Gulch. We talked about that in 2010. It got a lot of headway. Anybody know what this is? It's a urinal. Small interventions can be beautiful. I mean, to me, it looks more like a sculptural piece. This is more inviting to pee in than probably something else. It was very sanitary. I know there's a little bit of trash there, but and it's right next to a church too. I mean, but it solves a problem, right? You would not believe me if I told you how many people came to our door every day and are like, can I use your restroom? Tourists, like, where do they go pee? These are basic needs, and we're not solving them, but we need to. And I think there are really creative ways to do that, to make it inviting. Kind of medium scale art installations. This is where an old Roman wall used to be, the old border into Utrecht. Just using water and mist and this kind of simple material just kind of draws your attention and tells you where you are. Or medium size, large size interventions. This is a roundabout, but punching out holes to save these trees, incorporating lighting where it's safe at night, Of course, modern transportation helps. Or extra large. We don't have any more green space in downtown. So how can we capture that? Well, a lot of cities are capping the interstates. We've already dug out the interstate. Let's just put a green roof on top. It's a simple idea. It's complex, for sure, but it's doable. And I think over 40 cities around the country have some sort of land bridge or that's under construction or built. And, I really see this as something that's for the future of Nashville. So installations, small, large, having minimal impact. That's my presentation, guys. So thank you for listening.